Brock Purdy, another dominating performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's like his team now. He owns property in Tampa. And the bad news, Talanoa Hufanga, feared ACL tear. What that means for the 49ers. Ji'Ayir Brown, the rookie, stepping in. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Big ups to all the everydayers out there. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's Rapid React episode coming at you live a little bit later than usual. Brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. I love that we still have got some folks fired up here in the chat, even though we're not live immediately following the game. For those of you that maybe listen to us on Monday morning driving to work, it's not going to change for you. We appreciate you. We love you as well. 49ers are rolling now. Another win here, 27-14, win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Week 11. Winksterdamus 10-0. We're going to talk to him on Wednesday about all of that. Croc, I'm just going to fast forward through the first half of the game. As good as some of that action was, I think all the important stuff started happening in the second half of this football game. And I want to point to one series in the third quarter. We talked a little bit this week about winning the middle 4 minutes of the game, right? The end of the first half, the beginning of the second half. And for the 49ers in this game to come out in the third quarter, and Baker Mayfield tried to do what we talked about him trying to do. He tried number 20, and then he tried the other side, tried number 7, right? And tried to go deep. And there was nothing there for him to hit big plays, trying for shot plays against the San Francisco 49ers defense. The Niners came back the other direction and hit a big play, coming back from a 98-yard drive after stopping the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 98-yard drive, a big touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk from Brock Purdy that went for 76 yards in a touchdown. That was the backbreaker. That was the haymaker. That was the shot that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers never actually got up from in this football game.
I want to kind of skip to a certain portion of the game, and we'll discuss all that, but I want to give a game ball out.
Oh, I'm going to we could just start for the game balls from jump if you want to, Croc. I like it.
I'm giving a game ball to Kyle Shanahan, who, however he drew up the plays or designed the plays, decided, you know what, it might be smart to target Brandon Ayuk. You know what, it might be smart to target George Kittle. 8 targets for George Kittle. Had a terrific game. I mean, obviously, like when you look at our quarterback's numbers, and you can clearly see the impact of both George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. But George Kittle, 9 targets, 8 catches, 89 yards, a touchdown. Brandon Ayuk, 6 targets, which was more than he got last week, which was just 3 targets, 156 yards. I think good things happen when you either it's Kyle Shanahan or Brock Purdy, but either one, those guys combined, just putting an emphasis on targeting 2 big-time playmakers and the effects that it has on the game. Big-time plays in big-time moments. So shout out to whoever it was, Kyle or Brock Purdy. Brock's going to get a game ball for other reasons. I mean, he was out there hooping. But Kyle Shanahan specifically, because I've just been like, I don't understand the usage of George Kittle. And today it was like, there we go. 9 targets, get it to him, and look what he did with it.
It was like, of course, George Kittle is part of the game plan. How could he not be part of the game plan? That's what it looked like in this game. This is one of the best as far as just targets in the passing game. Juwan Jennings did get 1 target, but it was McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. And Kittle was actually the leading target. I think you said 8. I think it was 9. I'm seeing 9.
9 targets, 8 catches.
Yeah, for George Kittle for 89 yards. No big plays down the field. There was a 24-yarder to George Kittle, but they were targeting. It wasn't about just like, oh, let's create space and get him this one big play and target him 3 times. It was like, no, he's going to be a part of the game plan. We're going to target him a lot in this game. It was the same for Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel involved as well. 4 targets, 3 catches. He had the 1 carry for -1 yard, and he did well to get the -1 on that one. And obviously, it's funny because the way the 49ers offense works, it's like Kyle Shanahan plans for Deebo to get the ball on the first drive. Christian McCaffrey is going to touch the ball 25 times. And then the question is from there, how much is Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle going to be involved? And I feel like they did a good job of getting everybody involved. Was it because of the way the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were playing defense in this game? It's just natural progression that George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk were going to be involved in this game. But I love the way everything came together on the offensive side of the ball for the 49ers. Would have liked to see less Christian McCaffrey late with the lead. The 49ers let the Bucs kind of hang around enough to where Kyle Shanahan was not comfortable going to any closers in the backfield. There's just those extra carries for Christian McCaffrey I don't love, but there's like not a lot you could look at this game and think, man, this did not go well for the 49ers. Tampa Bay ran the ball okay against the 49ers. It ended up being 3.7 yards per carry. I think at one point it was 4.5 yards per carry, but it was never a problem either. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about really anything I saw from the 49ers, and I really thought they did a great job. Mike Evans, how about this? This was one of our keys to victory. I talked about it with James Yarko in the crossover episode. Croc talked about it with you in the keys to victory episode. Mike Evans was targeted 12 times. He got 5 of those passes. That's a huge win for the 49ers. He got the touchdown, but I'm not even blaming Ambry Thomas for that. He's playing the outside leverage. He's trying to, this is Mike Evans. You have to play to defend the red zone fade. He knows he has help inside. Good on the Bucs. Good on Baker Mayfield for not throwing that. Ambry Thomas knew he had help inside with Gibson, and he didn't throw the ball in that first window, or else Gibson, I think, thought he was going to take one to the house right there, because he was obviously eyeing that and reading it, and it was a good call by the 49ers. It was a good defensive play, but sometimes the offense wins and they score the touchdown on that. But I thought the 49ers played Mike Evans pretty well. A couple of comebacks, little outs against Ward, nothing backbreaking from Mike Evans. 12 targets, 5 catches. So, game balls are going to be, I think, flying all around for us tonight for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think anytime you hold a receiver like that, right, like extremely talented, and he's had a lot of big games as of late, he's going to have 10 straight seasons of 1,000 yards. So, and he's coming off of a game where he had like 150 yards or whatever it was. So we put a big emphasis on just how do you defend Mike Evans, who do you put on Mike Evans? And the 49ers said, you know what, just whoever he lines up in front of, like, that's who's going to end up guarding him. And, I like how you talked about on the touchdown pass, because a lot of people probably will say, oh man, Ambry Thomas just got beat for a touchdown. But there was a little schematics to that, playing more outside shade, trying to take away the fade. And all right, I'm going to have help inside. And unfortunately for the 49ers defense, Baker Mayfield was able to hang in there until he was able to get to that second window. So good job by Baker Mayfield finding a way to kind of, defeat the defense in that instance there. But the way that they covered him, Chris Godwin, who is another, terrific receiver as well. He was a guy who didn't really have any catches until the second half. I thought the 49ers secondary did a solid job of holding up against a couple of receivers that can really be game changers, and they stopped him. Now, there were some other guys that got off, but the 2 guys that you felt like you can't let them beat you, 49ers did a good job of covering those 2.
All right, there's a whole lot more we got to get to in this episode. We're breaking down everything we saw from week 11. 49ers win 27-14 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got to give out more game balls. Croc fired up, giving game balls right out of the chute. Let's keep it going, because there's plenty to give props to in this win for the 49ers as they improve to 7-3 now on the season and get a little space ahead of those Seattle Seahawks heading into that Thanksgiving matchup next week. More Rapid React 49ers game balls coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your job faster and for free. And why not go to LinkedIn? Because that's where all the job seekers already are. I'm on LinkedIn. Croc's on LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn. So all you do is you add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and it spreads the word that you're hiring. Then use simple tools, screening questions to make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and eventually hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So let's just get this one out of the way and give a game ball to Brock Purdy, who, I mean, if you remember last year, Croc, and it was almost exactly a year ago where Brock Purdy, I think it was early December, right? Brock Purdy was the guy who came in. Nobody really knew a lot about him. Came in against the Tampa Bay, or he came in against the Miami Dolphins, and with an injured Jimmy Garoppolo, 49ers won that game. Like, hey, Brock Purdy looked pretty good. And then it was like, okay, Tom Brady's coming to town. Brock Purdy shows up, and by the time the game is over, the entire Levi's Stadium doesn't care about Tom Brady, the local kid that's coming back, right? The GOAT. They're chanting Brock Purdy's name. And so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers come back to play the 49ers in Levi's Stadium. And what does Brock Purdy do? He goes 158.3, perfect passer rating, 21 of 25 passing, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He was sacked 4 times. One of the best performances he had in his career statistically. And everything just looked easy. Like it was that easy Brock Purdy game where you watching him play and you go, how is this guy this good? Brock Purdy is that good. And he dominated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Once again, he owns Tampa, Croc.
He was terrific. And I had tweeted out, man, Brock Purdy, he's hooping. Right. And hooping basically just means he's out there balling. You know, he was making all the throws that need to be made. He started off making some really nice layer throws over defenders. And he's been very consistent with making those throws. And we've identified those as staples of the Kyle Shanahan offense. So doing a terrific job of that. But then, hey, you know, making plays on the move, hitting Deebo Samuel, big gain. Throwing the go route, I mean, we just don't see that in the 49ers offense. He tried it early on. It was incomplete, a pass intended for Brandon Ayuk. Came back to it and hit him for a big, 77-yard gain on a touchdown, beating, I want to say it was Jamel Dean on that play.
It was the slot fade. And when he let the ball go, it was like, oh, okay, is this going to get there? And then Jamel Dean jumped up and tried to make a play on the ball. I was like, oh, no. Is he going to be picked? Is it going to be, a pass defensed? No. Brock Purdy put it perfect placement on the outside shoulder of Brandon Ayuk running the fade. It could not be placed perfect. He couldn't have ran out there and said it better. I mean, it's awesome to see a deep throw like that. And it's something that you don't see in the 49ers offense. It's something that's missing from the 49ers offense. But 2 weeks in a row now, Croc, we've seen 49ers receivers. Last week it was George Kittle. This week it was Brandon Ayuk. Walk into the end zone looking around like, where's the defense? The defense isn't even on the TV screen if you're watching the broadcast of that game. And so that's fun to see. So when you have the element of the short to intermediate that Brock Purdy's been so good at, the layered throws, the anticipation, just the laser focus that he has, the guts to throw some of these tight window throws, and then you're making throws over the top and deep plays because the defense has to they have to play to defend that short and intermediate area of the field. You have to be able to beat them deep in that case, and the 49ers have. And Brock Purdy's made those throws, and the 49ers receivers have made those plays the last couple of weeks. So that was really fun to see, and that was the icing on the cake of this game. That was the haymaker that really the Bucks, and there was the Hufanga injury we're going to talk about in a second, and they kind of hung around a little bit, but they never really got up from that third quarter. 49ers defending their shot plays, and then the 49ers coming back and say, oh, we're going to go 98 yards and we're going to throw a shot play of our own.
They were trying, man, and I felt like 49ers doing kind of certain things to kind of let them back in the game. Some poor special teams moments, big returns late in that game, and then penalties, and kind of setting them up in scoring position. The defense did a really good job of holding up, and they've received a lot of flack over the last few weeks, especially during that 3-game losing streak. But holding up in that red zone, while even again, not an amazing second half for the secondary. At one point, 8 straight completions for Baker Mayfield to different receivers. Ji'Ayir Brown comes in for an injured Talanoa Hufanga, and I know we'll kind of discuss that. I sent you a text message as soon as it happened.
You did.
We'll get into that when we touch more on Hufanga and Ji'Ayir Brown coming in. But fighting through adversity, I thought they did a terrific job of that, and just some near interceptions, some passes where I felt like maybe they made things a little bit more difficult than it had to be because they got their hands on some passes, jumping some of Baker Mayfield's throws. But ultimately, I have asked to see the 49ers be able to fight through a certain level of adversity. And I felt like, and again, that's for me to see them as a Super Bowl team, like a legit. I know they have a Super Bowl roster. I know they're a team that's going to compete for the Super Bowl. Like, can you win the Super Bowl? I feel like there's certain adversities I would like to see them go through to know that they can overcome what it takes to win it all. I feel like this was a step in the right direction with just some of the things they were faced with, which were a little less than ideal. Now, they were ahead, and we've seen that a lot from them, right? Even Brock Purdy, he played lights out. But it's like, you play lights out, you're ahead. What does it look like when maybe it's a little bit tighter and there's a little bit more pressure on some of these plays? So we still don't know exactly what that looks like. But overall, a terrific job of them figuring out a way to kind of fend off a team. And, I'm talking about adversity and all that. They won by 13. And I think the spread was like 13 or 13 and a half. So they were expected to win by a certain margin, and they did that.
Yeah, they covered. I think it was 12 and a half. They covered it by a half. That's what I have written down. Or no, I have 11 and a half here. That was what it was on Thursday when I did my Peacock.
It kept climbing up. Like today, it was 13 and a half.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So I read an article last week about how the sports books want the 49ers to lose because people keep putting money on the 49ers. Even after the 49ers had the 3-game losing streak, they still had the third best odds to win the Super Bowl. Like, that number never came down because people still believe in them and kept betting on them. So I think there's as much money on the 49ers this year, week to week, and to win the Super Bowl versus any team in the NFL. And I think a lot of those people putting in that money are listening to this podcast right now because they believe. And when you watch a game like this, it's really easy to believe because the 49ers are a pretty complete football team, and you got to try to nitpick and look at some penalties, look at some red zone stuff, and it gets a little bit more. Jake's wondering where you can buy this hat. This is a one-off hat that you cannot buy. I've got the black with red thread. Croc's got the red with black thread, and those are the only two that exist and that may ever exist on the planet, unfortunately. And I think that's the way it's going to stay. Real quick, we got to talk about the DBs. We got to talk about Talanoa Hufanga's injury, what that could mean for the 49ers. Ji'Ayir Brown, rookie safety that is forced into action now. Do you think so? This is what's frustrating. And we talked about this during the 3-game losing streak and during the bye week, Croc. You see Kittle, 9 targets, 8 catches. Brandon Ayuk, one of his best games statistically, the 76-yard touchdown, 5 catches, but 156 yards, 31.2 yards average on his receptions in this game. And then you say, okay, well, Deebo Samuel didn't go crazy in this game. How come that those stat lines couldn't happen when Deebo was out of the game? Does Deebo make that much of a difference? Is it because Trent Williams? Is it the Trent Williams-Deebo combo? What do you see that's different in this game where the 49ers, like, drop back passing game led the way? 3.7 yards per carry from Christian McCaffrey. They kept running the ball. Kyle got to his 30 total rushes in this game when you count Purdy and you count Deebo Samuel. Elijah Mitchell got in there for 4 carries. But it wasn't led by the ground game. There was a drop back passing game. It had to be for the 49ers in this game against this team, and that's what it called for. How come we couldn't see this in some of those other games that the 49ers lost?
I think they missed the explosive plays and targeting guys like George Kittle. Again, I know I put a lot of emphasis on that, but I keep going back to the Browns game where you lose Christian McCaffrey, you lose Deebo Samuel, and the entire game, George Kittle had 2 targets. Like, to me, that's kind of ridiculous. So when you look at the passing game in this game, or even you look at last week and what it looked like, it's targeting guys down the field. It's getting your playmakers a little bit more involved, and there was more emphasis on it this game. But I really feel like whenever Kyle Shanahan wants it, like, it's there. It's just maybe getting a little bit away from what your ideal thoughts are heading into the game. I had 7-on-7 tryouts today. A lot of terrific athletes in the 209 Stockton area. And, I'm looking at these guys, and I'm looking at, how I could utilize them, these long, scrappy, defensive backs. And I'm like, man, I'd love to do some man match, stuff with these guys and kind of teach them that. But if they can't do it, then all right, I need to go to something else. But if they can do it, then hey man, like, let's ride this, because this is what will get them to play to like their full potential and their best ability. Do some man match, mixing some zone stuff, some press bail stuff, because I have these longer corners. Well, the 49ers is like, they have these guys that do so much, and it's like, yeah, but I want to run quarters. Like, that would be me just being like, I have all these guys that can do all these different things, but I'm just going to run quarters and have them sit off at 8 yards and just try not to let anything behind you, instead of, challenging them, playing a little bit more press man, press bail, different type of concepts that can really kind of showcase their skill set even more, as opposed to playing a little softer. And I think that's what we see a lot from Kyle.
And I think in this game, especially, Kyle came out knowing this is the game plan. This is how we're going to have to win this game. In other games, his game plan wasn't exactly that. Especially the Browns game, it was a very different game plan. And all of a sudden, you lose the guy who's the main part of your game plan. I think that was going to be one of the biggest Debo games of the year. He gets hurt early, and that affects things as well. So a lot of it is Kyle Shanahan, the way he looks at how to attack a defense from week to week, and how he usually wants to attack a defense anyway, with the ground game, the short passing game. I think this was one of those where all week long, Kyle knew that it was going to be a Kittle game. It was going to be an opportunity to take some shot plays, some more throws to Ayuk, and that's what it ended up being for the 49ers to win this game. Okay, we got to talk Hufanga's injury. We got to talk Ji'Ayir Brown and the 49ers defense next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by DoorDash. And when you think of football, for me at least, when I think of football, I think of food. What's the spread going to be? I got to be prepared for it, whether I'm working during a football game or whether I'm just watching as a fan and I'm hanging out and I need something to eat. If the game goes to timeout, it's time to order DoorDash, right? If it's halftime, that's ordering time. 2-minute warning, you got it. That's your cue to order in. For me locally, I like to go Pizza Hacker. I like the sourdough crust, and they don't deliver, but with DoorDash, I can get that right to my door. Super Duper Burger is another one for me. And how about the Keys Pub wings? I'm going to throw 3 at you. I'm only supposed to throw 1. That's 3 options if you're in San Francisco or around the Bay Area. There's some other options in different cities around the Bay to get those to your door with DoorDash. That's why it's called DoorDash. Or groceries, restaurants, retail, you can cook your own spread at home. Get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and use our code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Don't forget to use code LOCKED23 for 50% off up to $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply. So a sober moment when it was almost a little bit funny at first, Croc, when Rachaad White kind of broke Hufanga's ankles, right? And Hufanga left the game. It's like, oh man, did they bench Hufanga because he missed a tackle in the open field? And then you find out, oh no, he went in the tent. And you find out, oh, he's out for the rest of the game. And that came quick. And you realize, oh, this is maybe serious. And then seeing that replay back and seeing how he broke down and his right leg buckled, and Kyle Shanahan after the game, all of the internet doctors said the same thing. It's like, that looks like something that's probably non-contact ACL type of injury. Kyle Shanahan confirmed that after the game, that they're fearing that it's an ACL injury. Monday we'll find out when he goes through the MRI. But man, it's a huge loss for the 49ers. Talanoa Hufanga, it looks like right now, everything points to that's probably an ACL injury, and Talanoa Hufanga is done for the year for the 49ers. So watching Ji'Ayir Brown get thrust into action, the rookie third rounder, Niners loved him. They traded up to get him. He's got a lot of similarities in his game to both of the 49ers safeties. What did you see from Ji'Ayir Brown, and what kind of a loss is it for the 49ers with Hufanga likely done for the year?
Well, first of all, with Hufanga, I mean, that's just a guy, since he's been in the league, he's been in every different situation. So, not an amazing start to the season, but just the experience that he has gained in the years he's played with the 49ers, whether it was coming off the bench, having to fill in for Jaquiski Tart in that situation, playing last year, being an all-pro, and then this year maybe experiencing maybe a little bit more low moments than maybe he ideally would like. I think all that kind of goes towards the overall player and kind of building up and then maybe being more ready for the postseason. Now you have to insert a guy like Ji'Ayir Brown, who immediately I I text you. Do you want to tell people what the text message said?
Yeah. So this is first play on the field. He gets targeted. I can't remember who the receiver was, but it was the seam route. He gets beat deep, and Croc sends me a text immediately that says 4.6540.
One of the things that we've said a lot on this podcast, and we talked about Ji'Ayir Brown, and we were worried about one thing. And it's like, if he's in position, like he just doesn't have like that kind of speed, right? Like just the speed we watched him just kind of have bad angles, and we're like, is the guy really fast, or is Ji'Ayir Brown just slow, right? Like that was our questions that we come away with, and it was just he's not like a special athlete in the sense of just ability. And there were a lot of people, 49er fans, clamoring to put him in the nickel spot. They're like, man, figure out something with this nickel. It's not going to be Isaiah Oliver, Diamador Lenore. I don't know. What about trying Ji'Ayir Brown? And we're like, he's not a cover guy like that. Like that's not his specialty. Maybe if it's a tight end, then cool. But you're talking about like receivers and he's going to have to guard guys in space. Like that's not going to be what he hangs his hat on. And you see right away, they targeted him vertically. All right, you're going to be off. You're having to match our guy vertically. You don't have the speed. And the saying that we have is you don't need the speed, or the 40 doesn't matter until it matters, right? So what we mean by that is 4.65, if you're just playing soft and you're keeping everything in front of you and you're just kind of coming downhill and triggering, then yeah, your 40-yard dash time is not going to matter. And that might be 90% of the time. But the other 10% of the time where maybe a team tries to use your lack of speed to their advantage, and they kind of get you where you're matched with a guy vertically, which is what we saw right away in this game. Like that's where it can hurt you. And he got targeted downfield. Now I saw some people making fun of him. I saw some things like, my shout out to my guy Grant Cohn, but I saw him. Now we see why they don't play him. I don't think that's exactly why. It just, you have two good safeties with Gibson and Hufanga, and they play very well. But if there is an area where you see the difference between Brown being drafted where he was drafted and a safety that's drafted much higher, he's never going to be able to run with a guy like that. Like somebody else might have, let's say Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah might get beat deep, but then it's like, yeah, but okay, I can come right back, and you try it again, and next thing you know, I'm running stride for stride with a guy downfield. Ji'Ayir Brown will never be that guy like that unless he just gets a legit jump on it and doesn't play honest, and he just like, I'm gonna haul my butt downfield and I'm not gonna give up that deep ball. So I think he did a good job bouncing back from that. There was some plays in the red zone where he was able to kind of get kind of in there and maybe distract a receiver or a tight end. We saw him reap the benefits of a ball off of somebody's hands and him get the interception, which we talked about his playmaking ability, right? If I talk about something that I feel like he might not be able to improve on as far as speed goes, we can also talk about one thing that jumped out on film that we really liked, and it was his motor and his ability to put himself in position to make plays. And I was like, that's something that's going to be there between him. We see it now with Hufanga, Gibson. Womack is another one of those guys that just put themselves in position to make plays. I think Ji'Ayir Brown would be one of those guys, but you just have to know he is likely a liability if teams try to target him in space.
We saw the entire Ji'Ayir Brown scouting report in one quarter of NFL football. basically.
Yeah.
And look, and Hufanga didn't have a great 40 time. Tashawn Gibson didn't have a good 40 time. So there's ways to and you watch that route that he got beat on. Like, he's flat-footed, and there's a dude faster than him, and he's even. And you're like, well, that's not good, because if you're even right now, this is a wide receiver. He's faster than you. You're 4.65, and that's what's going to happen over the top. And Hufanga does a good job, and Gibson does a good job of not putting themselves into that position, seeing what's going on in front of them. Hufanga got beat on nearly the identical seam route. It was by tight end Cade Otton earlier on in the game too. It was a little bit different, but he got beat on a similar route too. So it's not that it's just super rare for a safety to get beat on a seam, but it was just that, okay, we saw the scouting report. We saw the playmaking ability. We saw
the out one was a little different. It was that the 49ers went to, it looked like more of a too high type shell, and Hufanga was disguising. So he was down at first near the box, and the 49ers like to kind of disguise things and try to bail out late. So he's bailing out to his deep half while they're running a tight end up the seam. So that was a little different than Ji'Ayir being matched vertically with the receiver. I think the out one was a little bit more good play call versus a bailing safety into his half. That's what it looked like to me.
In their chat, they're saying it was Otton that Brown was beat by. No, that was, I think, the receiver Palmer, right? It was Trey Palmer, I believe, was the receiver that.
It was one of the speedy guys. I don't even know if it was Palmer. It was a different name than that.
Was it
Pickens or something? I mean, it was something. It wasn't.
Tompkins?
It wasn't Palmer.
No, not Tompkins. It was maybe Raheem Jarrett.
Yeah.
41 yards.
It was
one
him.
catch for 40. It was his only catch of the game. That's who it was. One catch for 41 yards.
Yeah.
It was Hufanga that got beat by Cade Otton earlier on in the game, 27-yarder down the seam. Yeah, so
second and 19
scenarios, but yeah,
he was bailing to a two half, so that's just a little different, because that's not. Oh, I'm mad. Like, he just ended up seeing it, and then he ended up being the first guy to react to it,
right?
As opposed to
wasn't this guy
I'm matched vertically with this guy, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so for anybody out there that's just thinking like, well, I see Hufanga make this tackle on this guy that ends up getting a first down, like, well, he got beat by him, and it's like, no, it's not really. Those aren't the same. If it is the same, I'll tell y'all it's the same. Like, yeah. Very similar plays, very similar concepts, but it was drastically different.
So yeah, we'll see what it looks like. I mean, it's going to be Ji'Ayir Brown. I've seen a lot of names in the chat here for Jaquiski Tartt, bringing him back, or I mean, I would love to see Kwaski T back. And the 49ers, if it is a torn ACL and Talanoa Hufanga ends up going on IR, they're going to probably make a roster move and bring somebody in, whether it's to the 53 or to the practice squad. I would imagine Taylor Hawkins, next man up from the practice squad, gets elevated. But it's going to be Ji'Ayir Brown. They drafted him in the third round. They traded up for him. I mean, and this is the scenario that Hufanga was in. We weren't sure about Hufanga after his rookie year. It was like, hey, is he athletic enough? Is he going to be a starting guy, or is he like maybe even a sort of a dime linebacker style of player? And he didn't play much as a rookie on defense until Tartt got hurt, right? So it was a very similar situation. And so I think it's tough for a rookie. You get your first action, all of a sudden mid-game, it's like, oh, here we go. I'm playing. Oh my God. And I just got targeted and I just got beat. Right. And I think it happens fast. And I can't imagine what that's like, but he made some plays. I will say the two plays he made were both, one bounced off someone's helmet, but he made the play, he made the catch. And the one with the one in the end zone to Mike Evans, that was also Baker Mayfield getting hit and threw a dead duck out there because there was some space.
He was late.
Good on Brown for not committing PI on that play either. But so an interesting night for Ji'Ayir Brown. And so that's going to be a big focus against the Seattle Seahawks, short week here on Thursday, seeing Ji'Ayir Brown. He's going to be in there for Talanoa Hufanga. I think even in the best case scenario for Hufanga's injury, and we might not see Hufanga. Someone asked, how long is an ACL? Can he be back by training camp? It's 9 to 12 months usually.
Usually 9 months. It just depends. A lot of it depends on the player. Like, everybody's different. I feel like Kyler Murray, it was like a long time with him, but a lot of players, just if I off the top of my head, I would assume that by regular season next year, he'll be fine.
Yeah, he'll be good at some point next year. 9 months puts us pretty close to the beginning of the season. No guarantee he's ready to do anything in training camp or to start the year, but he'll be back at some point next year. And likely with the way things go, everything, like all the time frames seem to be pretty fast these days in the NFL. It's pretty amazing what the medical staffs and the doctors and the surgeons are able to do. So I definitely wouldn't put past him to be ready to go by week 1 next year, but that would be pretty early in the process. And a lot of times guys say they don't feel like they're really back until 12 months plus.
I did want to talk about this from Kittle Me This, and he says, Brown came in cold as a rookie, feels like overanalyzing based on combines and what we don't know yet. We are too spoiled. Let him grow. My response to that, and that's good, and other people might have that thought as well. I think there definitely is something to a player just come off the bench cold, maybe not truly understanding exactly what his responsibility is, how much was he a part of the game plan, like all of things go into it for sure. The things that Peacock and I were talking about when it comes to Ji'Ayir Brown, it was not based off of his combine. I think the combine time just kind of solidified what we saw on film from the standpoint of like what his strengths and weaknesses were. And if you would have asked me prior to this game, I would say I ideally would not want to see Ji'Ayir Brown be matched vertically on a guy with a two-way go and have to run vertically with him. Like that wouldn't be a strength of his. And I would say, based on the film, hey, he can work in this area, he can do this and this well, but that's not where I would want him to be in, like that type of situation. So that's not overanalyzing. That's just something that even when we watch the film, like that would be, if I was a team, that's how I would target him, based on what we saw on film, which again, it wasn't a guy that was getting beat vertically all the time. We just knew just based on where he was from an athletic trait standpoint, that could be a weakness. I mean, you see a guy that has 10, he only played 2 years at Penn State. He transferred from junior college, played 2 years, led college football in interceptions over those 2 years, had 10. He takes the ball away. He's flying around, had a bunch of sacks. Why does a guy like that slide to late third with that type of production? And there's only one reason, man. There's a lack of something there. And some teams will try to take advantage of it. And we saw a team do that today. So we will definitely see if it continues. And we hope not. And we'll see how the 49ers plan on utilizing him. And he'll be a part of the game plan now. So I think you should see a better version of him. But there's definitely will be ups and downs as they go through, find out what he does well. As we saw with Talanoa Hufanga, one of his early snaps in a start when he wasn't the full-time starter yet, but he had started this game in place for a Tart. He got matched up in the slot on Christian Kirk, and they ran this deep route, and Christian Kirk just ran right by him. And it's like, we don't want to see, we only want to see Talanoa Hufanga in that type of position. And you figure out different ways to utilize them, and I think the 49ers will with Brown as well.
And it's not combine measurements either. This is what you see on tape. So go back and watch tape, and you'll see what guys are.
Go back and watch our breakdown. We talked about it. If you type in Locked On 49ers, Ji'Ayir Brown or Tig Brown, you should be able to see the episode where we broke down a lot of what we were seeing on his film.
Yep, and I identified him as a guy that I thought the 49ers would like, that I like pre-draft too. He's a good player, and I like him a lot. He's not the fastest guy, and so there's a lot of good safeties in the league. Hufanga's not the fastest guy. Tashawn Gibson's not the fastest guy, right? So there's other ways to make up for that as well, especially playing safety in the NFL. So, and teams are going to go after him, especially in the 49ers have so few weaknesses on their defense right now. The Seattle Seahawks are like, okay, we're going to go after 27. We're going to go after 20. 20 was pretty good. Like we kind of got away from giving our game balls out. We got to do that really quick, and we're out of time here. But Ayuk, Brock Purdy, Kyle Shanahan, you gave up a game ball to earlier. I got to say, Fred Warner, all over the place. He was a madman in this game, as he is many games. Gets a game ball in this one. Any more game balls before we go, Croc?
I would say Travarius Ward. I mean, there were even a couple catches where, highly contested by Ward. And I always appreciate a defensive back that's not playing soft, that's challenging himself. And even at the catch point, like the quarterback just had to make the most perfect throw to complete a pass on Ward, and that happened a couple of times, as well as him having some breakups, slot fade, end zone pass breakup as well. So terrific job by our guy Charvarius Ward, competing throughout the day. I definitely give him a game ball.
Appreciate all the everydayers jumping in the live chat with us here. Post game 49ers 27-14 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Quick turnaround. We'll be talking a lot about the Seattle Seahawks this week. Of course, we'll be coming at you every single day as we do on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Croc and I back tomorrow. Locked On 49ers.